Well, welcome everyone to our podcast. And it is about my life, my business. Wish I was here, which is the refrain that we have in terms of leading a life that is engaged, driving an organization, doing whatever we're doing within our careers, but not doing it satisfying other people, but us being so fully present in what we're doing so that we turn this life, this pursuit of a career, the driving of a business, the growing of a business into something that we fully enjoy. Today, I'm quite pleased to make the announcement that Dr. Shanaz will be leading us in our conversation today, and I really look forward to what she's got to bring. And she's going to be totally inspirational. So I'm all ears, and without further ado, welcome, Shanaz.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Jacques, for that introduction. And I've got big boots to fill after last week, Monday, with the boundaries. So I think that you were talking about, why boundaries are so important for us. And on sort of the back of that, to kind of follow up I because of some of the statistics that I was quite surprised at, and the kind of referrals I've been receiving for some training, but also working with some organizations. There seem to be a number of people experiencing burnout. And, in a sense, some of it you spoke about last week in terms of setting goals and living that life that we can enjoy, and living a fulfilled life, and being present as well. And so what I discovered, and have been picking this up over the past 6 months, is that there are a number of working people who are burnt out already. And I've even received referrals from doctors where patients are experiencing burnout and not quite sure how to manage it. And so I thought I'll kind of talk about that, but link it then with the boundaries and being able to say no. And I came across one of my favorite quotes. So when I do some training around burnout or taking care of yourself, I love using this quote by Audre Lorde, and she is an American professor and academic and feminist. And she says this. Caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. And I just love that. I'm gonna read it again. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. And the reason why I like that is that I think that we have been raised to kind of with this idea that we need to be constantly busy with, and even in our religion, what is that quote? The devil has work for idle hands. So there's this thing about busyness that we have to be, and we do not feel that, and in that busyness we feel we need to take on so much. And an interesting statistic I'd like you to kind of think about and keep in mind, I was really surprised at it. They found in a survey, in a 2022 survey, they found that 56% of working South African women experience burnout. And that then explained the amount of referrals I was getting to do some training on self care and burnout. And the referrals I was getting from doctors for patients. And so I thought I'll just kind of help people. And you may ask, why are you starting with burnout? It's like the start of the year. But I realized that many employers and organizations have these team building days that's maybe once a year, twice a year if you're lucky. Or they'll have these employee wellness days. And I want to put it out there that if you are leading an organization, or if you are, in a position where you work, sort these things out. A team building day and an employee a wellness day once or twice a year does not address work stress, and it's not going to address burnout. One sick day, giving your employee one sick day is not going to help. And that is why I thought, let me talk about this, because of the goals that you were talking, and the boundaries that you were talking about last week, um, um, Jacques, and the gift of saying no, being able to say no. And I think that what if you wanted to come in, Jacques, if please feel free to interrupt me. And I'm actually also interested whether this is a reflection of men in South Africa. The survey was particularly with women, but just so that you know, what is burnout? And I also think this is an ideal time of the year to talk about it, so that when you start setting your goals, and I think that goal setting, for and planning for the year is sort of an ongoing, you refining it. And so maybe before you draw the line and say, this is my goals, these are my goals for 2023, that you add in something around self care in order to prevent feeling exhausted and burnt out by the time it comes to October or November. So, what is then burnout? Burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion, they say, caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when we feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet up the constant demands that kind of come our way. And what is it? So it's really then important that we recognize when we start to feel this, and some of the kind of things to kind of look out to. And so that I find that when organizations are referred to me, or when patients are referred to me, it's usually when they are, you know they completely at the end of it. Almost, it's like, they are in a not in a good shape. And I think the idea is to, if we practice self-care and we set that as a goal for ourselves, and we don't see it as something that we do by the way, then if we put it as part of our goals, we will ensure that 2023 is not going to end in a year where we are emotionally exhausted and drained in December or November. So starting it out early is really important, and being aware of the signs and symptoms is also important. So some of the signs and symptoms to kind of look out to is, when your physical symptoms is that constant tiredness even after resting, physical body tension, headaches, back pain, wrist pain, difficulty in falling asleep or excessive sleeping, and falling sick, becoming sick even when you have time to rest. Then, emotionally, some of the emotional signs to kind of keep out and look out for is when you're hypersensitive to sort of emotionally charged conversations and things going on at work. Also, when you're feeling disconnected from your emotions or your body, also feeling guilty, about not being able to take on as much work as what you would like, or not being able to manage some of the tasks that you've been asked to do. And then also feeling like no matter how much you give, whether it's to your family or to work, it's never going to be enough. Another sign to kind of look out for is increased levels of irritability and anger. And so when you start to notice this, it's really important that you get some help, and also that you kind of do it at the beginning. Do not wait, as I said, until the last minute. And so The other thing that I found amongst women when I've been asked to do some of these presentations or at organizations, particularly for us women, we tend to think that self-care is going to have a manicure now and then or going to have a massage now and then. So yes, that can be part of it, or that those spa days. And the thing about self-care is that it's beyond this occasional spa day, or when you get that gift voucher as a gift, for that you can go to the spa or something. So what is self-care? So self-care is what people do for themselves to establish and maintain health and to prevent and deal with illness. And what they say that it's a broad concept, right, encompassing general and personal. Here it is. It's about nutrition also. It's about changing your lifestyle, or including sporting and physical activities and leisure activities in your in your day, in your lifestyle. It's about environmental factors as well, your living conditions, your habits. And it's also about things like income level and cultural beliefs. And then how you take care of yourself. What do you do when you are actually stressed? And what I'd like people to think about, or the listeners to think about, is develop a plan of action for self care as well. Make that as part of your goals for 2023 in order to prevent burnout, so that we are not leaving it when it's too late or when you need to take off sick from work. The other thing about self care, that it's also about what there are different elements to self-care. One of it is around taking care of your physical health and body, right? And also I think that, for example, what they've started to say is that if you a manager or you employ people, if your employees are not taking care of themselves, you're also finding lots of accidents at work and mistakes at work. And so it does affect, if employees are not taking care of themselves and we are not taking care of ourselves, then it affects our productivity, it affects our ability to focus and to be creative. So these elements are really important to consider when you're putting together a self-care plan or an action plan of self-care for 2023. So it's taking care of your physical health and body. Exercise is really important. They say it's the exercise is the most underutilized mood booster, right? And taking care of your spiritual health is also important. Connecting with God, with a spiritual, having developing your spiritual health. Many people in times of stress find it comforting when they are reaching for and have spiritual beliefs about being part of something that is bigger than yourself. It's also about taking care of your emotions, taking care of your mind and thoughts, and increasing your well being through self care behaviors. So, in other words, it's about learning to do this on a regular basis. So, making it a daily practice rather than doing it once a month, or when you get that voucher, or when you're going to do the manicure, or having for managers who have staff thinking about that occasional employee wellness day or team building day, right? It is about daily practice. It's about daily practice and an organizational culture that needs to kind of happen if we are going to reduce the amount of burnout and stress in the workplace. And so one of the areas sort of self-care practice is then awareness of your own needs and emotions and limitations. So I think that one of those important areas that we kind of spoke about in the areas that we spoke about was um, being able to say no, knowing how much task, what your limits are, it's really important in burnout, or to prevent burnout. And that's with the boundaries that we have been speaking about, that ability to say no. It is also about the balance of work, play, and rest. And it's also about connection with yourself and others. And the one thing that I also just want to briefly talk about is workplace self care practices. Because what I found is that the organization tends to take care of people through, those once a quarter team building activities or employee wellness days. And when you have workers who are burnt out or experiencing stress, that is not sufficient. What they encourage employers to think about is that it needs workplace self-care practice that one can put into place to, in order to ensure that your staff do not burn out and that they are productive. It is about looking at what needs to happen at an administrative level and what needs to happen in organizational structures. And it involves things like workload and time management and really attending to work stress. It's also about, do staff have access to professional, formal and informal support? How do you do professional development? And how do you maintain that positive energy, and your staff commitment to work? And what I've discovered is that often when we are talking of small businesses, the business owner, because they have to do a lot of things, they don't really pay enough attention to workplace stress. And so, because maybe they think they have a small business, there is no need to kind of think of self care practice in work. But here, I think because it's a small business, or I know small practices, in medical practices, for example, they don't kind of think that the staff need this. But you find that it is in these small practices and small businesses where people do take on a lot of work and tasks in order to make it more successful or to grow the business. So I think it's really important to kind of think about that. And so that's kind of what I am kind of wanting to kind of talk about today, is to really make this one of your goals. Put this on the staff agenda or the team agenda, the monthly meetings that you have with your team. Put it on in your diary if it's, personally for you, and work on a plan of action that you can remain sort of productive and focused this year, instead of waiting till the last minute or for that employee wellness day or that team building day to do something for yourself or for your team. And yeah, so thank you, Jacques. That's me.
Wonderful. I mean, it just continues to dovetail as we building this. I mean, setting a goal of self care. I was talking to a client today, and just as we were talking, the topic of self compassion came up, which fits within what you're talking about. It's the last thing that we put on an action plan. Literally, when we started out this year and we talked about small changes. I mean, what kind of what do you think are the small changes within this self care umbrella? Because it might seem daunting. I think some people are more open to it. Other people who are come out of a certain background are maybe not as open. I don't know if it's gender specific, whether women are more open to self care and men are not. I'm not too sure what the research says. It's just that when you started out with the statistics, it caught my attention when you said 50%, 56% of working South African women are experiencing burnout. But when you launched into that, it seemed to me, and maybe I must just clarify, that you're saying that people already are experiencing burnout and we're not even finished with January. Was that true?
Yes, that's actually true. So I think it could be on the back of still coming out of COVID. It could be sort of not having a break really over December, and that sort of thing. So I mean, we all assume that everyone takes a break over December, but there are many professions and businesses who do not take. Those are their busy periods of time. So I think it's an assumption that people take a break over December.
I'm just thinking about what happens in the retail industry.
Yeah, precisely.
December is such a busy period, working long hours, stores only closing at 9 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. Incredible. In actual fact, I was buying some groceries at Woolworths the other day, and the teller was sitting with her head bowed, and one of her colleagues had to let her know that she needed to press the button to let me know that she was available, but she was dog tired. And so, anyway, made a joke out of it, laughed with her so on, and asked her, "Oh, okay, what's happening?" And she was just saying she doesn't know. She had a day off and she's so tired. And this was like sort of late afternoonish. Um, and one tends to think, well, burnout is only limited to people that work only in certain jobs that are deemed to be highly stressful jobs. But I mean, I don't. I would say, actually, I want to interrupt my own thinking and say no. But everybody is really open and vulnerable to burnout, and everybody is got to look after the different areas that you spoke about, in terms of the physical health and body, in terms of mind, in terms of your thought life, and understanding what's happening with your emotional well-being, mental well-being. All of those kinds of things are important, and we all face pressure, and we all sometimes process that pressure as stress, whether it is social, whether it's economic, whether it's work stress. It's really rife, and I mean, it's quite a stat. You know, here's the thing: some have worked and some have not rested, but some and I must say I might even include myself where, normally 3 weeks. By the second week, I'm kind of rediscovering my mojo, and I want to start the year. I'm rearing to go, and finding that this year 3 weeks were just not enough. And suddenly feeling that it took me a lot longer ramping up and rediscovering that spark that wants me to get up in the morning and get things done. So the tiredness, and I'm wondering, especially over the last 3 years, that our recovery time, when we do take a break, is not the same. We need longer recovery time. If we turn 2023 into the year where, as a goal, there's self care, how we take care of this, how we address this, and you were saying come up with an action plan. And it's not always just going away on holiday. Sometimes you go on holiday and then you feel obligated to do all kinds of things while you're on holiday, and you don't rest, you don't recover. There's no relaxation. For me, the R&R in self care is rest and relaxation. And I actually smiled when you said it's not just having a spa day, a nice massage, and you go straight back into the environment you come from. No time for reflection. Um, the that self awareness, and I think there really, it captivated my thought process, was being so aware of your own needs, but at the same time being aware of your limitations. Um, so Shanaz, self care. Now, if I'm a person listening to this, and here's the inevitable question: where do we start? Any practical tips for us?
Take your lunch break. Take your lunch break. Literally, I think it's about starting to do that. I think that lots of people do not actually take their lunch break. And I think it's really important. You were talking last week about focused, being able to focus and cut out the distraction. So they actually say, I was reading something that says that, you are most focused and creative when you work in chunks. I think that we have this idea when we are busy for 4 hours straight at work without looking up, then we are most productive. But they're actually starting to find that if you work in half an hour chunks, then you can be more focused, because what it does, it makes you check your work again. So it gives you that break, and automatically you'll want to go and see what you've done or what you've written. So it's that review. It's a time to pause, and so you do need that. And so once you started, even so, the lunch break, or that tea break, if you have a tea break, actually helps, because you are resetting yourself in a way. So we have this, as I said, we have this idea that when we are furiously busy, we are being productive. But what the research is starting to show is that being busy, those binging times where we're cramming and we're doing 4 hours in one, or 5 hours, it's not necessarily all productive work that we're doing in that time. So take your lunch. Start with taking regular lunch breaks, and your tea breaks. If you're able to walk around, and go outside, great. During that break, start with that. If you a manager, put asking about the wellness of your staff and your team on the agenda. Make it a standing agenda point.
Excellent. This is all practical, and I laughed when you said take a lunch, but you know how important that is with people working in this hybrid environment. So when you in a physical space, and it's lunchtime, and depending on where the office is, people can ordinarily, at the herd sort of mentality, we taking a lunch break and they go together, and that social interaction, and they might go out and sit in a canteen or whatever, or go out to a coffee shop or a restaurant, but they get out from behind their computers and things. But now working from home, it's a completely different thing. Is you take your lunch and you eat while you're working, because you have to always be on that energizer bunny type thing. Anybody can call you at any time, whether it's via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and WhatsApp groups I have just proliferated completely. So the other one that I want to add to this is, when you take your bathroom break, do not take your cell phone with you. I would like to offer that also as practical advice.
Great.
Just and at night, I think it's something that even I have to really discipline myself of. If you set your time to go to bed 1 hour before you actually plan to go to bed, stop all access or exposure to electronic devices, and rather do something else. No TV, no cell phone, no social media, those kinds of things. Because I think we are not sleeping as well. And something that you've mentioned, we're having interrupted sleep, not the deep REM kind of
Yeah,
energizing type
yeah,
sleep.
yeah.
Because we're always on, the brain is always active, we're working on problems the whole time, and then the more we stress, the more we work on the problem, the more we stress because we can't solve the problem, and it just becomes a vicious cycle. And I think it's awesome to put this on your list of, whether we want to call it the mini resolutions or the goals for the year. Add this promise. And I mean, listen, I am challenging anybody who's listening to this podcast. We are challenging you, we dare you, put it on your list. Self-care. It is, and I mean, I'm going to ask that you just do that quote again from Audre Lorde as we end off. That'll be fantastic. Shanaz.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
Yes,
let me
please.
just, sorry, I've got a few things open, open here, so I just want to find it. So, oh, the other, while I'm trying to find it, the other thing that I would encourage people to do is to create a time out space for yourself. And you, if you, or in the office. So if you, wherever your office is, so we, it's away from work, so just a little space. And I've had to do that too with an organization because they didn't have a space where their workers could come and just kind of chill out. And so they're going to be working on that, sort of. Right. So the quote by Audre Lorde, she says, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare.
Excellent. So, on that note, remember, you are challenged. This year is not about a 100-meter sprint. Look at it as a marathon race. Build your resilience, improve it to such an extent that your stamina at the end of the year hasn't been depleted to such an extent that you've burnt out. So, wonderful. That's our challenge to you for 2023. Until next week. And thank you, Shanaz. That was awesome.
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.